Boker Tov, good morning. So, as I have said, the portion of the Torah that will be read this coming Shabbos is Matos Masai. And to follow up from the message of yesterday, Hashem tells Moses that the Jewish people should wage war against the people of Midian. And Moses then gives very specific instructions on how this war should be waged. And when the soldiers return from battle, Moshe learns that, in fact, they failed to follow his exact instructions. And it goes to, the verse reads that Moses and all the leaders of the assembly went out to meet them outside the camp. Moses was angry with the commanders of the army. But an important life lesson here is that what Moses did was, even though he was totally upset, clearly very upset with those in charge of the battle, he went out to meet them outside of the camp and practiced what is one of the most fundamental principles in dealing with people, and that is preferably to reprimand somebody where needed, to do so in private. And in fact, there's a book that I've come across before, and the book titled The 1 Minute Manager devotes a lot of energy in the book to this powerful principle. Sadly, today we've seen, and I see it often, where there's a need to assert authority and a need to fuel one's ego, and there's a public reprimand of people just to make sure that everybody understands who the boss is, which is really tantamount to just being a schoolyard bully. There's really nothing to it, and so that really is more about being a coward than it is being a leader. And so the life lesson is a very strong one there. And being a leader isn't only about business. It's about what happens in your home. It's about what happens in your community. It's about what happens in your work life as well. So in all your interactions, you want to try and maintain that principle of leadership. And ironically, it's people that act in this way because they wrongly believe that they'll gain respect. This is why people do this. This is this ego fest that plays out. They actually feel that they'll gain respect by occasionally letting everybody know who the boss is. But great leaders don't really need to publicly berate people. It's if you're a genuine leader, you do things in the right way. Parents today are, and we find ourselves in a lockdown where parents are feeling a little bit under the pump, having to work, and in many cases having to do homeschooling at the same time. And parents are certainly some of the most important leaders that we've got in the world. And Hashem entrusts us with the responsibility of raising His children, our children. And He certainly, Hashem certainly wouldn't want kids to be ridiculed in public. So I'm guilty of it, and it's something that I need to take on board, and that's why this resonated with me so much. There's certainly times where I'll have a rush of frustration when one of my kids just does something wrong, and I have an incredible urge to yell at them or to shout at them just so that I can get my point across. But it's not really how to discipline, or even more importantly, how to educate your child. And in this Vort, even though Moshe was absolutely irate with his commanders and with his army, he didn't let it get the better of him. He chose to go outside the camp so he wouldn't embarrass them in front of everybody else. And there's countless times throughout our days where you'll be in the position of being a boss. Okay, your relationships with your kids, with your partners, work, social, community life. You be a customer in a store, and just there's a brief period of time you can act any way you choose, and while you might feel the need to let people know who's in charge, it's ultimately going to make you look like a fool. That's the reality of it. And if there is something that they did or this person has done that has upset you, then let them know without anyone else being, able to hear it. It's not only going to make them actually listen to what you're saying, but it'll probably also help you build, your own self-esteem by not living the fantasy world that, to be something more important in your own life, you need to break other people. That's not how things work. If you want to be an amazing individual, you've got to make amazing people around you, and you've got to empower them, and you have to be that facilitator. So where lockdown and various other pressures are getting to us, and sometimes we lash out, we're only human. But try and remember this lesson where Moshe, who we certainly can't compare ourselves to, realized that it was better that he go outside of the camp and berate commanders, not in front of others, but to do so privately, and thereby create a different relationship. And it never, ever took away from the fact that Moshe was a respected leader, and still today, as we can see from this, remains a respected leader. So in these times of frustration, in these times of challenge, let's try and not only tap into the small wonders and savor the small things in our lives, but let's also work very hard to build up people's self-esteem around us and to make people great around us. Have a wonderful day and an even better week.